In a full book about advertising and presidents and marketing, at some point we were going to have to talk about sex. You know that, right? We're going to handle it in a respectful way, but you got to talk about it. Sex and advertising, as meow is to a cat or bark is to a dog. It's part of the toolkit in modern advertising. You can't get away from it. No matter what you think about, like, well, you know, we're seeing different types of models in stores. We're seeing different expressions of sexuality. Great, it's still sex, and sex still sells. It can just sell a little differently. And we talk about in this chapter, focusing on Bill Clinton's presidency, how exactly that happens and how exactly it works. And it's fascinating. It was tough. I was going to have to talk about it somewhere. It made sense to talk about it here, but maybe not for the reason you think. We're not going to talk about blue dresses. We mentioned it once, but that's it. That's not the reason. It really comes from research from San Diego State University that really took a look at the data and started to see when did our attitudes towards sex change in a material way, especially as it relates to same-sex relationships. And they're the ones who found it. So I want to give you just a little taste of their data and what they found when they took a look at, kind of the general social survey in exploring the data longitudinally from 1972 to 2012, and just a short excerpt from my summary of their research. From 1992 to 2000, the percentage of people who accepted adult same-sex relationships doubled from roughly 15% to nearly 30%. In the next decade, that number would jump again to nearly 50%. Yes, a broader change in attitudes towards premarital sex, heterosexual sex outside of marriage, nearly doubled from 1972 to 2012, but this change not only took longer, but it also changed among a broader set of generational cohorts. Gen Xers and millennials drove the change in adult same-sex relationship acceptance. Studies like this are critically important for our understanding of changing attitudes. For sensitive subjects such as sex, we could see a disconnect between what people think in private, what they say in public, and what they see in the media. Those influences are related, but they're complex, and sometimes they are counterintuitive. It takes studies like this to confirm when actual shifts in attitude are taking place. Although the full study resides behind a paywall, I'd recommend buying it and reading the study yourself. It's only $40. It's deeply enlightening. I'll share just a few other findings, perhaps answering questions you might be asking yourself right now. 1. Regional differences matter. Attitudes about sex are more permissive on the East and West Coast, somewhat less so in the Midwest, and least permissive in the South. 2. Religiosity relates to sexual attitudes, but perhaps not in the way you might expect. The authors relate declining church attendance to an increase in individualism, which tends to be related to more permissive sexual attitudes. This is a fascinating finding and the subject of much of Dr. Twenge's work. 3. Black Americans are not as permissive as other groups. The authors speculate that the disproportionate effect of HIV/AIDS epidemic and pre-adult pregnancy could be at the root of this difference. And 4, look at the acceptance of extramarital affairs. Bill Clinton's affairs did not convince people that behavior was acceptable. In fact, acceptance of that practice declined during that time. However, perhaps the biggest implication of their research is sexual education. It's difficult to educate younger people about sex if you don't understand the differences in their attitudes on acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. This may frustrate older adults, primarily parents, who feel that passing along values shouldn't be influenced by changes in generational attitudes. However, as a professional persuader, I would take issue with that approach. If you truly want to persuade, the first step is to understand your audience. This research and everything in here is fascinating, and I take the opportunity to unpack how to think about continuing changes in American and really global culture about sexuality and gender. All of those things as they continue to evolve over time, this chapter gives you a way to think about those in a way that's a little bit more constructive than kind of the culture war perspective that we're looking at here. And frankly, it's how advertising and marketing people think about it. And the way they think about it is more constructive and more practical. So July 4th, 2021. This chapter, among all the others, can be found in Marketer in Chief. You can get it anywhere books are sold. Make sure to pick yourself up a copy and read on.